The Glock 43 9mm single stack, tiny 90 from Glock, of course, the much awaited, long anticipated, and then I think very well accepted carry pistol, backup pistol, whatever you want to use it for, from Glock. Came out this spring, and I've picked mine up pretty much right when they were available. I got mine right away, and I've had this gun and have been carrying this gun extensively for about 6 months now. So after 6 months, I've definitely formed a lot of thoughts and opinions and had some experience with this gun. It's been across country with me twice as my carry gun of choice. And again, it's seen a lot of time in the belt and in the pocket. And that's one of the things I like about this gun is that versatility. This can be a pocket gun and it can be an inside the waistband gun. There aren't a whole lot of guns that can be a pocket gun for me. I'm not a giant person with, you know, with deep pockets in more ways than one. So the Glock fits not only my small pocket of size, but also my shallow pocket of budget. So it ticks both of those marks. But also, it is every bit a Glock. It is, it shoots like a Glock. In many ways, I find the ergonomics to be even better than its larger stablemates. Also makes it certainly a great candidate for shooting like a backup gun match for IDPA or just all around range fun. And that's one of the things probably that's really needs to be talked about with this gun is it is just fun to shoot. A lot of subcompact pistols are a little harsh on your senses. You know, they're loud, of course, by nature because you're close to the muzzle. There's a lot of muzzle flash because the barrel is so short, and there's a lot of recoil felt. The Glock really is very minimal on the recoil. I find the ergonomics, again, as I've already said, to be very good. Trigger reach is excellent, even for short hands and small hands. This is a deep dive of the Glock 43 2015 edition. 6 months in, 6 months of carry, 6 months of range time. A lot of different shooting with this gun, a lot of different, I've shot both of the magazines that came with it. I've shot with the extended magazine. I'll be doing some more of that. And let's just have a little fun with it. So, welcome to the deep dive review of the Glock 43. The concept of the deep dive is I do my first 100, and then I spend a lot of time with the gun. In this case, a whole lot of time, very active time. And then I formulate additional thoughts. I do a lot more testing in some cases, or just get a lot more experience with the gun in different types of situations. So I have a lot more to say about it. I have different opinions. Maybe my perceptions change a little bit from what they initially were, or I've just gained some additional knowledge and information to pass on. So that's sort of the case here with the Glock 43. I've had this gun for about 6 months now. I got it when it first came out, and it is now beginning of November. So definitely 6 months or more have ticked by, and this gun has had a lot of use. I've been carrying it extensively. It's had a lot of range time, and I've even chosen this gun to fly with me across country a couple times. So it's definitely been a go-to carry gun. And I'll talk about that a little bit more in a bit. Hundreds of rounds have gone through this gun. Various types of ammo, a lot of full metal jacket, 9mm obviously, mostly 115 grain of all different types of brands. A lot of my own hand loads have gone through it, and of course a lot of self-defense loads. Things in the neighborhood of 124, 125 grain jacketed hollow points. What I typically am carrying in this thing right now is Spear Gold Dot. Okay, so one of the things you can talk about in a deep dive that you can't talk about obviously at a first 100 is reliability. Now sometimes during a first 100 there will actually be some reliability topic present itself. If you've watched a lot of my videos, you may have seen some of those. I've had some. But with the Glock 43, there was no such issue. Nor, I'm happy to say, after 6 months have there been any. There have been 0 malfunctions with this gun. None. No failures to feed anything. No failures to fire anything, to extract or eject anything. One of the concerns people sometimes have about a small polymer framed pistol like the Glock 43 is that they're afraid it might be susceptible to limp wristing malfunctions. And what that means, what limp wristing means basically, is that the person shooting the gun is not supporting the gun properly, and they don't have a rigid arm. You know, their elbow's not locked maybe, or they just don't have a lot of arm strength. And so when the gun fires, they're allowing the gun to come back much more freely. And by doing that, that's absorbing some of the energy that the gun needs to cycle the slide. And so when you hear limp wristing, basically what they're saying is that you're sucking the energy out of the cycling, and the gun can't cycle fully, and that can a lot of times cause a stovepipe error or failure to feed. So I tried to deliberately do some limp wristing with this gun, and I was not able to get it to have any kind of failure, and it, you know, performed perfectly no matter how lightly I held the gun, to the point where I was you know, I was holding this gun about as lightly as I dared, you know, in the interest of safety, because if I held it any lighter, it was just going to fly out of my hand. Okay, I'm going to try something with the Glock 43. One of the things that I see a lot and hear a lot in discussions, I don't really see or hear much in the way of conclusions about it, but I see it talked about a lot, and that is limp wristing. You know, what's the Glock 43 going to be like with its susceptibility to limp wristing? And that is a concern. Some of the smaller pistols do have a problem. And, you know, I know the Glock 42, I've seen it myself, where people have a problem with limp wristing and cycling the pistol. So I'm going to try to deliberately create a limp wristing malfunction, which is hard for me because, you know, I'm extremely manly, but you know, I'm gonna do my best. There's some people I know I can think of offhand that I'm gonna pretend I'm them and see if I can't limp wrist this pistol a little bit and cause a malfunction. So I'm gonna hold it just with basically just enough to not drop it. I'm gonna hold it with my thumb and maybe one part of one finger, and that's it. And I'm gonna take my elbow in so that I've got nothing holding the pistol back. And we'll see if I can limp wrist this thing. I mean, it's doing great, and believe me, it feels like it's about to jump out of my hand. So I'm trying to be careful that doesn't happen. That would not be good. We would be breaking the range rules. Yep. Well, 6 for 6. I mean, that's certainly no scientific test by any means, but it doesn't even feel like it wants to have any kind of problem cycling. It's very solid. I can feel the recoil. I can feel that slide snapping back home. And like I said, I had such a light hold on the pistol that I felt like I was going to lose it every time. So I wouldn't dare hold it any lighter. That's you know, about as much as I can do for about as scientific as I get, right? So no perceived limp wristing issue here for me. And like I said, I have seen it on the 42. I haven't experienced it myself because, you know, being as manly as I am, it's nearly impossible for me to experience that. But even when I was trying to be a girly man, couldn't make it happen. Okay, so that's reliability. Talked about how reliable this gun is so far. What about accuracy? You know, that's certainly another consideration for a small self-defense gun. You want it to be accurate, at least accurate enough to be, you know, reliably put the hits where they need to go, right? Well, it is a Glock. Glocks are inherently pretty accurate pistols, and this one's no different. You know, you've got a pretty short sight radius here with this gun, but still, inside of 10 yards, or right about at 10 yards, which is where I did all my shooting mostly with this gun, 10 yards or in, it's very accurate. Again, I've shot lots of different kinds of ammo, and it pretty much shoots as good as I'm capable of shooting it on any given day. I had mentioned that what I'm usually carrying in this gun is Speer 124 grain gold dot jacketed hollow point. Sort of my go-to 9mm carry load. And just doing some offhand shooting at 10 yards with this proved extremely good results. So let's try 6 rounds of Speer gold dot hollow point. Good defense ammo through a good defense gun. Distance is 10 yards, which is certainly by almost anyone's definition the very, very outer limits of self-defense range. And let's go for the headshot. Okay, that's not too bad. Again, that's at 10 yards. That's definitely, in my mind, a little outside the perimeter of a self-defense range. That's a good self-defense ammo, the Speer gold dot jacketed hollow point, and I would feel pretty comfortable with that. So I think when people were talking about wanting Glock to make a single stack 9mm, and they've been screaming for years for the Glock to do that, I think the concept in everybody's mind was that it was going to be a miniature Glock 19, you know, a shrunken down Glock 19. And it's not. It's actually, in fact, a larger Glock 42. And I'll show you what I mean. Let me try and get a copy here of each. Okay, so first, this is not a Glock 19, it's a Glock 23. But if you know Glocks, you know that they are absolutely identical except for the chambering. But this is sort of your standard Glock design. And Glock 19 is absolutely a very standard Glock design. It is truly a smaller Glock 17, right? But that does not carry forward when we talk about the 43, and here's why. The 43 is built more like the 42. Almost exactly like the 42, except for chambering. So it's a little bit larger to accept that round. It's a little longer, it's a little thicker, you know, so the size overall is larger for the 43 versus the 42, but the design is exactly the same. They're both a one-pin gun, so there's a single locking block and trigger pin, rather than 2 that you have on most other Glocks. And of course you have your rear pin, but that's it. There's some differences internally. One of the differences is the trigger spring is internal to the rear housing. It's not hooked on like other Glocks. Sort of an integral design. It shares that with the 42. The slide lock and slide stop are both different. They both use coil springs instead of flat springs. So you can't really see it here, but if you look inside there, you can see a little coil spring. And the same with the slide stop lever. There's a little coil spring in there. So the internals of the pistol of the Glock 43 are exactly like the internals of the Glock 42. It also has a different trigger safety block in the slide, just like the Glock 42. Not the same as the other Glocks. One of the key differences, though, is not on the inside of the pistol, and most people don't care about the inside of the pistol. They just want it to work, and they want to like the way it shoots and the way it feels. Well, this has to do with that. One of the key differences in the Glock 43 that it does also share with the Glock 42 is a little bit of a different grip angle. People who don't like to shoot Glocks, and I hear this firsthand all the time by people at the range, people at matches, the people that choose different brands other than Glocks, and they say, I just can't shoot a Glock well. It's just not comfortable for me. And I know exactly what they're talking about. Most of the time, with the typical Glock, like this Glock 19, and I can do this, I'll do this myself. If I draw this gun and I close my eyes and I push out like I'm gonna get on target, and I'm looking for my natural point of aim, when I open my eyes, typically this is what I see. What you see right there with those sights with a Glock, that is what I'm going to see when I push out. So I have to then either train myself to cant my wrist forward more to give me this, or I have to take a half a second to get to level my sight picture before I break my first shot. Right? So that's the problem that I know a lot of other people share, and that all has to do with the grip angle. Well, the Glock 43 has a deeper curve right here. I'll show you, compared to the Glock 19, so you can just see them side by side. And yes, I know one is taller than the other, but if you ignore the height and just look at the shapes, you see how much more exaggerated that curve is on the Glock 43. And the heel sticks out further in a shorter distance, right? So what that does is that cants your wrist forward like this more when you hold this pistol, because the web of your hand is going deeper in and being pushed out at the heel of your hand in a shorter period of space. So again, it's like taking your hand and moving it forward just a little bit. But that just a little bit makes a difference, because when I push out with the Glock 42, or I'm sorry, when I push out with the Glock 43, I tend to see this. I tend to see a natural sight picture. In fact, sometimes if I've been drawing and pointing a Glock a lot, I'm going to actually see that, and I have to let it come back up. So people who don't normally like the ergonomics of a Glock still owe it to themselves to pick up a Glock 43 and give it a try, because you may be surprised. You may like it. One of the other things about the Glock 43 is, of course, that it's a much shorter trigger reach, this distance from here to here. And so for smaller handed shooters, you're going to get a lot more trigger. I mean, if I'm not careful, I'll get too much. You see, I can go way past that first joint of my finger. So when I'm shooting 43, I actually have to be careful that I'm getting just the right amount of trigger. But if you've got really small hands and petite hands, that's an advantage. It's a lot easier to train yourself to not get as much trigger and hold your finger out like this than it is if you can't get enough finger on the trigger. There's nothing you can do about that. So that's another advantage for the small shooter for the Glock 43. It is truly a small pistol in that respect. And of course, it's very flat. It's flat like a little flounder. It's about the same as the industry standard, if you will, slim single stack 9mm, and that is just at around an inch, or just a little less than an inch in thickness. So one of the things that some people also don't like, and they'll complain about with the Glock 43, is the capacity. You know, they'll say, you know, wow, we waited and waited and waited for Glock to come out with a single stack 9, and when they do, it's only 6 rounds. You know, they're really disappointing. We want more rounds. And a lot of the competition will give you more rounds. They'll give you 7 rounds or 8 rounds in a relatively similar sized package. Glock went with 6. And that is what it is. Now, I've only tried one of the aftermarket brands, and that's the Terran Tactical. I have a small 2-minute review on that. But this is the only aftermarket brand I have tried, but it is an extended magazine that gives you 8 rounds. And basically, it's just a base plate. This is a genuine Glock magazine, the body, the follower, and from what I understand, the spring also. So there are aftermarket alternatives out there. You know, but when it comes to capacity, if you're going to complain too much about, well, it only holds 6 rounds, well, then you want a double stack. You know, if you're going to carry 9mm and you want 10 rounds or 12 rounds, there are plenty of guns out there that'll serve that purpose. They're just going to be about half again as thick as this one, and you're going to have to compensate for that. So when you want a really thin 9mm pistol, you are going to sacrifice some capacity. Now Glock has got you sacrificing quite a bit, but it is what it is. Extended magazine from Terran Tactical. One of the other nice things about the Glock being a Glock is that automatically you know it's going to be popular, you know it's going to be a good seller, and so there's a lot of accessories available, sometimes even before the pistol hits the shelves. Before you could find the gun, in many cases you could find a holster for it. And I've been using a couple of different ones here. I've been using this holster from Multi-Holsters a lot. This is a inside the waistband, right hand of course, Kydex with the carbon fiber pattern, which is nice, except nobody gets to see it unfortunately because it's concealed. But I love this holster. It's absolutely fantastic, and that's one of the many available. But I'll tell you what I carry this gun in a lot, and that is this DeSantis pocket holster. This is the Nemesis. This is pretty much my favorite pocket holster. It's got that sort of tacky outside. It fits a lot of different pistols, and it's kind of my criteria. This is my go, no-go gauge, this pocket holster. If a gun will fit in this pocket holster, and it fits, the depth fits okay, and if the grip of the gun doesn't extend beyond this pocket extension, then I know that I can pocket carry the gun. The Glock 43 for me is about at the upper extremity of what I can pocket carry. So this is sort of as big a gun as I can pocket carry comfortably and concealed. But it does just make the cut, and so I do pocket carry it a lot. It's really surprising how soft the Glock 43 shoots. That was my first impression 6 months ago. And that still holds true today. The soft shooting of this gun is really one of the things that makes it a great candidate for a lot of folks for everyday carry. Now, if I could just get them to make a 33 round magazine for it. Okay, so Glock was kind of criticized by a lot of people for what they felt was, you know, coming late to the party in terms of single stack 9mm pistol. You may have your opinion about that, but, you know, I think better late than never, really, is sort of my feeling on it. Better to have shown up late than not at all. Even if you find a lot of Glocks uncomfortable to shoot, I still say you need to pick up a 43 and either test shoot it if you can, or at least just try and hold it and maybe dry fire it. Pretend you're drawing it, you know, close your eyes and push it out, and then open your eyes and see where the sights are. You might be surprised. But if you're in the market for a single stack 9mm, regardless of your brand preferences and affiliations, I think you do owe it to yourself to pick up a 43 and just see how it feels to you. And if you can test shoot one, test shoot one. Because it really does set a particular standard. To me, there's a lot of criteria, obviously, you know, to judge guns by. If it's going to be a carry gun, it's going to be a self-defense gun, whether it's self-defense inside the home or outside the home. There's one criteria that's first and foremost, and that is reliability. If I don't feel confident that I can count on that gun to chamber a round and fire that round, and then chamber the next round every single time, then that gun has no place in my in my arsenal. It may have a place in my collection, but it's not going to be put on duty. It's going to be sitting on the bench when the game starts, okay? The Glock, so far, my experience, 100% reliability. My confidence in the brand is that that's exactly what you can expect, and that's what I would expect for the next 6 months and the next 18 months and the next 36 months after that. All right, so there you have it. That's a deep dive. Maybe not a lengthy dive, hopefully. Hopefully we still kept this video to a watchable length. But there's a deeper dive in the Glock 43. And no matter how you feel about Glock, love them or hate them, this is a really nice little pistol.